Hey folks, today's video is the build out video for my tiny island tank. And the build out video for this tank, I put that off a little bit because I had a few issues early on, like right after I made the video, and in the first couple of weeks were a little shaky. I had some things I wanted to change and talk about before I got into it with this. So what happened? So you'll notice right away I've got a cylinder up here instead of the canopy that was up there before. That canopy I was hoping would be like this one. Now this canopy here has never rusted or anything. The canopy that was on this one, however, did. It rusted big time, and there was I started seeing little rusty droplets and stuff coming on. So I pulled all of that out. I could potentially seal that and make it maybe work, maybe not. But it turns out at a fish swap in Chattanooga, I guess a couple of years ago, another person had given me this tank. And I think it's, I can't remember if it's a 3 or a 5 gallon little cylinder tank. It's one of those little PetSmart special things. It's just an acrylic tube, basically, like a little tiny garbage can almost. But it's weirdly the perfect shape for the hole that I made. And it's nice and tall, so it gives it a lot of room for plants to grow and stuff. And it's got a flat surface, so I could switch out the light from that little dangling light that was on there before to something a little cooler, one of those little fluval lights that's programmable. I'll show you that in a minute. All right, so let me do a little flashback little moment here. So we're going back to the summer when I put this together, and I'm going to walk you through some of the things I did, some of the mistakes that I made, and stuff like that, and then I'll show you where we're at today, and we'll take a closer look. All right? So here we have this sort of goofy little split tank from PetSmart. I suppose this was made to maybe keep two bettas together. You could keep one in each different compartment. I was curious about how the water dynamics worked. It's got kind of a little waterfall feature where it'll spill over, and the idea is that you pump with a little box filter into one side, and it'll kind of go over to the other side. And if you fill it up all the way, you don't see any kind of waterfall. But if you don't, you got this kind of neat waterfall. And I thought it might be kind of a neat way to sort of do a paludarium. It's got this kind of sort of tacky 70s wood-colored lid and a couple of LED lights. So one thing that's interesting is the way evaporation works. If you've ever had one of those fluval spec tanks or the fluval flex or any of the ones that have the internal filter in the back, here's a great example of why that back pump out chamber gets lower than the rest of it. If you can imagine these cups of water that I'm pulling out or evaporation, that's what happens to that lower level, and it does kind of get exasperated after a while. So the more of that you pull out, the more exaggerated that difference becomes. And eventually your pump out chamber can start to dry out a lot faster. That's where all the evaporation shows, because, of course, the pump's filling up the other side and keeping the other side a consistent level. But if you're curious about this tank and about how it works with low water, or maybe what it looks like in different levels, there you go. So I discovered this stuff called egg crate. Yeah, I think I saw it on a Serpa Design video and shelf, and I just started using it to build anything that I wanted in here. It really can be made to do anything. So with a little bit of trial and error, I was able to construct a number of different little things that I needed to make this project happen. Like on this side, I'm making an island, something to kind of pull that stuff up out of the water. Kind of like I want those Wabikusa balls to be mildly in the water and then sort of coming out. So I made a little tray for them to sit on. But I also wanted to be able to clean the glass and maybe get to stuff underneath there. So I made a little opening on the side so that I could get down to the front of the glass and like underneath those Wabikusa balls. Then it came down to making an opening in the lid, and I traced out the canopy that I had, and I just sort of used my Dremel tool to melt through that plastic cover. and I just sort of melted my way through and made a nice little hole. I experimented at first with this concrete. I might talk more about this stuff in the future. It's kind of an interesting little stuff that you can mix up and make into structures. I wasn't super fond of the color of it, and it was a little bit more granular than I wanted. I ended up having to change a lot of what I did with the way the filter worked and stuff too. So I went a different direction. So now what I've got here is a piece of foam. This is actually foam from a fluval flora. If you remember the old style fluval flora, if you look at my older videos, the first version of fluval flora came with this foam 3D background. And they would always pop off. And I kept one of them. What's cool about them is they're sort of gray on the inside, so they're not white when you cut into them. So I was able to cut them into all these kind of cool shapes and use them to hide the superstructure of all this egg crate that I was making. So I'm camouflaging my shelf and kind of making it look like a little bit like it's got rocks all around it and stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing there. And I'm just using a foam cutter. That's basically a hot wire that cuts through the foam. I decided to spray everything black. I've got this Krylon Fusion spray. I've used this a lot on some aquarium products. And painting something black is a great way to just kind of make it disappear. It looks like I had a little bit of trimming to do. I tried a bunch of different things with this lid, and I never got a solution that I really was in love with. I wanted it to make it look as clean as possible. This lid's going to get painted as well with the same Krylon Fusion as I used on really pretty much the rest of this tank. I sort of devised a little plan for holding the lid up and pretty much worked, but we'll get more on that in a minute. So here I am kind of test fitting things and kind of planning what I want to do. I changed a lot of plans for how the pump works. I wanted to make sure I could be able to get that pump back out of there if it failed. I didn't want to build something that if some part of it broke that it wouldn't work. I used this aquarium sealant as sort of the glue for the entire project. And here you'll see how I attach this underneath the lid. Boy, this egg crate stuff is so versatile. You can really do a lot of cool stuff with it. I ended up making that opening a lot bigger in the end. But I guess the plan was to have a bunch of different levels for things to kind of crawl around on. But it became a real pain when you were opening and closing the lid. But all I really did was made it a little bit bigger. The superstructure of it's still there. And boy, that was a really easy way to kind of make a little shelf for that to sit on. I used that same silicone to kind of glue all those pieces of foam onto the egg crate. And that's pretty much how I assembled everything inside of here. It was pretty fun to put it together this way. It was kind of like building a model or something. But all the pieces were sort of custom made by you. After a lot of trial and error, I realized that the plan I made to hide the pump wasn't really going to work, and I kind of took it apart and hemmed and hawed and fussed on it. The shelf worked really well, like right off the bat, but the rest of it, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to do that. And in the end, I came up with something I really liked, but we haven't gotten there yet. One thing that I knew I wanted to do is have a way to have the water come over without actually going over the top of the plastic. I kind of wanted it to happen at a lower place. So I drilled a hole in there so I could just stick a rubber hose all the way through. I ended up kind of expanding that. You could be real careful when you do that. That ended up cracking a little bit, but it didn't do any major damage. And I just kind of slowed my roll with it. Here I am kind of trying to figure out what my placement's going to be. I've got this stuff called porette foam. This is stuff that I used for my corner filter. If you'll remember that corner filter project from forever ago. I had some of that porette foam there, and I decided to use that in combination with this little tiny pump to fix my pump out issue. And with a little inspiration from a bunch of pond filters I've seen, I decided to kind of cut the porette foam and make a pre-filter for this little guy. And then I'll use that to test my little hide for it. All right, here I am. Got my little hole here. And here's the pump. The cord probably go this way, so that means inlet is there. Shebang. And now I just need to make something to kind of hide it. I'll be able to pull all of this out. I could cut another piece if I needed to, but I can replace this. Plus these pumps here are all about the same size. You can buy a lot of these things. They're pretty easy to find so far. And if not, then I can, I've got a lot of wiggle room in terms of space here. So what I need to do is make a little enclosure that's a little bit smaller, so it'll kind of squish up there and open on this side so the water can freely flow into here and then back out, and we'll be good to go. Now, after testing out the placement for this thing, I decided to kind of just trace it a little bit with a Sharpie. All of this is going to be under gravel and stuff eventually anyway. So I kind of traced approximately where this stuff will be, got the pump and everything else out of the way. And that left me free to just take that silicone and just kind of glue it down. And so what I did is I just kind of glued a little wedge, a little place where I could kind of stick it in there. There's a big gap if you look towards the side that where the two sides of the tank kind of border each other. There's a big gap there for water to get around, so I think that that's going to be a great little way to hide that filter inside. I also experimented with adding other sheets of plastic to the lid there. I definitely did that on the tray on the inside to make sure that the Wabikusa ball parts didn't fall down inside of it. So what I've done at the top here is I put this fluval light. This is a light that was on, I think it was on the tank that was sitting here originally before, and I just didn't really have a way to mount it when I had that other thing. But as you can see, this inverted aquarium, this aquarium just kind of turned upside down, has a nice flat surface where I can put this thing. And water condensates up there and kind of refracts the light around a little bit. I can program this so it ramps up and ramps down just like I like. And it's a nice little light for in here. Now, it is really foggy in here and kind of hard to see, but I kind of like it. Like it's, there's something about it that's sort of mysterious and fun. So I ended up cutting away a lot of the plastic here at the bottom. And I did that so that more light will come in and more things will have an opportunity to kind of grow up out of here. It's been really interesting in this one to see how all the plants around the side of the Wabikusa ball are growing up and doing really well. And of course, these are big buse plants growing up all around the sides of it and stuff. And then we've got some flame moss right on top, along with some other smaller pieces of buse and some other stuff, kind of all growing in there together. I've got a little bit of that going on. Like I said, I swapped this out with an Anubias, and really I should just pull this off. All right, so maintenance here, I'm going to take the light off. I guess I'll just kind of stick it over here. And what I do is I've just been tilting it like so, letting the water kind of run off. I can pull it out. So here's what we have going on inside. As you can see, I've removed a great deal of the little edge around here, made it a little bit wider, a lot more room for things to grow in. I do have some buse down here and down here. That's all buse. And I'm hoping that this one's done really good in the marginal area, and I'm hoping that the other ones will eventually grow up and start to come out There's even more around the corner and stuff. I've got it all around the perimeter of this. So that Anubis is from my sump. I have some in there sort of acclimating, kind of marginal, like half in and half out of the water. So it actually adapted really quickly. And it's really rooted in there too. Like you could tug on it and it's on there pretty good. So it's doing great. Like this little guy's coming up and looking all right. This is Christmas moss, I believe. Or just like regular Java moss, maybe. It might be Christmas moss. I think it is. And it's adapted really good. This has already kind of died back and then come back in another form, so that's pretty cool. It seems to be wicking really well, just like I had anticipated. I did take it down. It was like one brick higher than it is now, which felt like it was getting a little bit too far away, and the water wasn't really making it up all the way up there, so I took that away. I have added some freshwater isopods and also some green Neocaridina shrimp, which I guess I will for sure not find since I'm looking for them, but yep. So I've got a few little bugs living in here right now. I'm going to throw a fish or something, maybe some baby endlers or something in here too, and kind of diversify the bacteria load. And just like that, it's super easy to get in there and kind of mess around. And that lid just pops right off too. There is one light, of course, is under here, and then this light is going all the way through here. Turn this off. I'll turn off my camera light. Get a little sense. Now, it's getting later in the evening, and this is starting to dim. This one actually ramps up and ramps down. This is just a hard on and off underside of here. But in the middle of the day, this actually looks a lot more even. Yeah, so that's the schedule for it. I can switch it like that and like really control the light if I wanted it to be real blue for some reason. I could do that. If I want it to be real red for some reason, or I guess it's kind of a pink. Maybe I just want to run all cool white lights. Or maybe I want it to be super warm. It'll do all those things. And it's kind of fun. I think photography-wise, I'll just take everything up to the max. And we'll have a look. Yeah, so with the light pumped up, you can see it almost matches. It gets really close, so it's like this on both sides for a little bit of the day. Then it ramps up and ramps back down. You rarely see what's inside of here, but it's kind of fun. Like you can kind of make out sort of what's inside of there. I don't know how interesting it'd be if like snails were going around on side of this, cleaning it off or randomly knocking the water droplets down. Or if it eventually, at different times of the year when it starts to warm up, if it'll eventually, even out where you can see it a little bit more like you can with this one. This one, most of the time you can see right in here. Of course, I've got flame moss in the top of that one, and I've got some buse plants kind of coming up on the sides. There's some kind of intertwined in here too. So, but that took a long time to grow. That was a really slow growing thing. So we'll see how long it takes to get some action over here. Overall, neat pair of tanks. I really like this these tanks kind of together on here, and I think it's very fitting. Different styles, kind of the same idea. Yep, I'm liking this more and more. Every day as it gets a little bit more balanced out, I'm liking it more and more. Okay, folks, and that's about all I have for you today. Now, I was originally supposed to shoot my 1-year anniversary of my no-filter 20-gallon tank, but in that video, I go through and I do a little trim and I clean it up and stuff, and it takes so long for the water to clear up after you do a trim and stuff, because there's nothing like moving the water around. So I'm going to let that sit for a few days and maybe we'll take a look at that next weekend. I do have a few surprise videos coming up this week. There's some behind the scenes look at how the clones work. These are going to be kind of extra videos that I'm just going to put out on Wednesdays, probably this Wednesday and next Wednesday. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, feel free to take a look. I'd love to have you. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope I've earned your subscription today. Until next time, follow your bliss, keep a clean tank, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.